A play fake. Young goes deep middle. He's got Jerry Rice. Touchdown 49ers!
Welcome to another edition of the 49ers Family Podcast, where three generations of 49ers fans break down the game each week and hear from Grandpa Mike as he shares personal experiences since he became a fan in 1949. My name is Josh. I'm here with my dad, Jared, and my grandpa, Mike, and we are a 49ers family. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Break down this Chiefs game. Yuck. Grandpa, Dad, how we feeling today?
Well, not good. It was really an embarrassment. It was, a smackdown. We simply were overwhelmed and outplayed.
Yep.
It was the Chiefs by a knockout. And the game was advertised as the top offense against the top defense. And Kansas City just has incredible team speed.
Yep.
And their offensive line was phenomenal. I mean, we didn't put much pressure on Mahomes. He's very elusive even when you do. But their offensive line, it's really deserves a lot of credit. Kansas City scored touchdowns on 6 of its first 8 drives. I mean, wow, 44 points, 532 yards, and 58 plays. So Kansas City averaged 9 yards every time they snapped the ball.
Unbelievable.
And that's the highest yardage the 49ers have allowed since 1963, which is 59 years ago. I mean, I just was in shock. The first half was close. The turning point came right before the first half. We were trailing 14-13. And on the 5-yard line, it was 3rd and 3, and Garoppolo threw an interception. He should have thrown the ball away or taken a sack or whatever. But so we got nothing there. We had 5 trips to the red zone, scored 2 touchdowns, 1 field goal, and 2 interceptions. So the game was just awful.
It was
every way. The offense was not good, and our defense was just deplorable. So it was a bad one. And some people think about 1994 when we won the Super Bowl, and during that year we lost to Philadelphia 40-8, and that's when Steve Young was yelling at George Seifert, the coach, when he took him out of the game. And the team actually came together and went on and won the Super Bowl. So that's I'm hopeful that happens here, but that was just deplorable last Sunday.
It was. Dad, what were your thoughts?
My thoughts were it was hard to watch and hard to see what was happening and see our defense kind of get just kind of run over, and those numbers get rolled up on the 49ers defense that prides themselves on their defense and their strength. And I think, it's been many years since 44 points have been scored against the Niners. Grandpa kind of alluded to it. I think this may be a catalyst potentially for the 49ers, particularly the defense, that their pride was certainly hurt. And I think it was one of probably the darkest hours of this season so far. And sometimes that is something that a team can really rally around, and hopefully had some of those kind of collective meeting like Grandpa alluded to with Steve Young that year in 1994. That was one of the darkest hours that season. But I think even Steve Young was taken out of the game at some point during that game. And he said never again. And it changed, it galvanized the team. So whether it's Hufanga or Warner or somebody defensively to come together, maybe this was kind of where they they make their stand, and the whole season could change and swing on this game. And I'm hoping it's something like that. I love that we put 23 points up on the board. I like when we're scoring, 20 plus points, our offense has trouble kind of getting a rhythm going. So I like we put 23 points up. We distributed the ball passing to, I look like about 8 different players, almost kind of nice yardage to Kittle, Ayuk, McLeod, Debo. I mean, just kind of down the line. So I think there was good distribution, passing. We turned over the ball. That's always going to kill us. So all in all, I think it was a defensive poor performance, but I think we'll rally around that. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting game. I think, a couple of my thoughts were I did feel that we got out coached, that we weren't as prepared as they were. They clearly had a game plan and put that into place, and we almost played victim a little bit on the defensive side, that they were just picking us apart. And even on the offensive side, they not that they, we still racked up 343 passing yards, a total of 444 yards. That's plenty of yards, and we held the ball for almost 34 minutes of the game. There's still a lot of good things, but when you're playing Kansas City and they can score so quick, none of that really matters. They don't care if they get in a shootout. They don't care if you have 444 yards, because they're going to put up 530 and score 44 points in 26 minutes. And like Grandpa said, in 58 plays. So, I think we just honestly did not play our best ball. Grandpa and I talked about this last week, that, there were a lot of injury concerns and things going into that game. And I think that a little bit distracted getting healthy, which we did. And we're moving forward with that, getting healthier. I think that did distract a little bit from the game planning and the execution that it requires to beat a team like the Kansas City Chiefs. And honestly, I would not be surprised if the Chiefs make another deep run into the playoffs, and we maybe see them in the Super Bowl, and we could have a rematch. That they are that good, and we are that good as well. So we'll see what happens.
Agreed.
Grandpa, what other things kind of pop out to you? Who individuals wise, as far as 49ers go, stood out for better or for worse?
Well, for worse, Jimmy Ward was terrible. They targeted him, I think, 7 times, 7 completions. He gave up 2 touchdowns. They just ate him alive. And it reminded me of the Super Bowl, that play in the 4th quarter with 6 minutes and 13 seconds left. We're ahead by 10 points. Kansas City had a 3rd and 15. And they threw a long pass, and to Jimmy Ward's guy, he was the defender, and they caught it, made a 1st down, and came back and won the Super Bowl. So I'm really concerned about Jimmy Ward. I don't think he'll be back next year. He just gets beat. He hits hard, and that's his forte. He's good at stopping the run and that, but he just got swallowed, as did others. So, but on a really bright note, 3 days before the Chiefs game, we made a trade. And
sure did.
I got very excited when, in fact, you texted me, Josh, with the news that we got Christian McCaffrey. I think it's a sensational trade. The guy is a 1st down maker. I mean, he's a yardage machine, and there's lots of teams that wanted him. And one of those was the Rams, and the Ram offer was similar to the 49ers, except one of their picks was in 2023 instead of 2022. So I'm very excited about Christian McCaffrey. We'll talk about him a little later, but that I was on a real high when we got him, and after we got demolished here, I became depressed.
Yeah.
And, but this week we have the Rams, and Jared and I are going to the game, so we'll be there.
Very
We're
exciting.
looking forward to that.
Yeah, great. Dad, what were some of the players that kind of jumped off the tape, good or bad for you?
It's a good question. I would say I really no big standouts personally, that stick out to me. I was excited to see McCaffrey in the game. I wasn't sure he was going to get any play time. So exciting. Looking forward to seeing him play here in LA against the Rams this Sunday, live and in person. And I hope he tears it up after a week of, full practices and whatnot. So looking forward to that. But I would say, no, I don't have anybody that, really stands out to me in this game. I think everybody who needed to do their job did it, but our secondary, got eaten alive, and Jimmy Ward sounds like he was kind of our weakest link.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something that jumped off the tape for me that I was not particularly excited to see, because I'm scared it becomes kind of a game plan that others will use against us, namely the Rams, was I feel like the Chiefs, once again, they had a game plan of how to work around Nick Bosa, take him out of the game, and they really did. There was a few times that Nick Bosa, didn't matter what the heck he did on that play, he was completely useless. And even, rushing into the backfield, but that was part of the design, and throwing the ball quickly over the top of him or whatever, or that sweep to the other side, and he he gets past this guy and looks around like, where'd the ball go? And I was like, dang it, because he's just such a disruptor. And honestly, he didn't have his best game, and a lot of that wasn't that he wasn't performing; it was that he was taken out of the game schematically. And then I do think that there were some good points on the offense. Grandpa, I know that we wanted to talk a little bit about Spencer Burford and Aaron Banks, that have been killing it, honestly, this year at the guard position and exceeding our expectations. Tell us a little bit about what we're seeing there.
Well, as we began this season, that was one of our main concerns. It certainly was one of mine, and that was the center of our offensive line. We started really rookies at center in both guard positions. And, after we lost Trey Lance, then if Jimmy got hurt, because our offensive line couldn't protect, the season would be over. It turns out that Spencer Burford and Aaron Banks have played exceedingly well, and they're rated in the top 5 guard tandems in the whole league at a 32. They're in the top 5. And Aaron Banks has been everything the team thought he would be when they drafted him out of Notre Dame. He did nothing last year, and there was concern, and but he has played very, very well. They've allowed 16 combined. Banks and Burford have allowed 16 or 15 pressures in 7 games, which again is in the top 5 for guard play. And their pass blocking has been excellent. And let's see, I have one other note here. Banks has been charged with allowing 8 pressures this season, he's coming off back-to-back games, allowing 1 single pressure in the last 2 games. That's 92 consecutive pass blocking snaps. He allowed 1. pressure. So the center of our offensive line is playing very well, and that was an unknown as we started the season. So that's a bright spot. And anyway.
For sure. No, I definitely want to give them, give them credit where credit is due, because they have exceeded expectations. And yeah, we're still, we're 7 games into the season, but especially now with adding Christian McCaffrey, dealing with all the injuries that we've had, I still feel like we're figuring out kind of who we are a little bit. This game was a little bit of a gut check as well, to kind of determine, all right, what are we going to be known for? What are we good at? And what can they not take away from us? That was something I think that the 2019 was exactly that teams knew we were going to run the ball. Teams knew that our defensive line was going to get after them, and there was nothing they could do about it. And that's, I think, and honestly, kind of what the Chiefs did to us. I think that's what good teams do to you. They impose their will. And we need to do more of that, especially on offense. While this was probably the worst defensive performance of the defense, Niners defense, that I've seen in a very, very, very long time, I do believe it's more of a blip on the radar, and an outlier than something consistent. But last thing about the Chiefs game is that, man, red zone, we were actually, driving the ball. That's why we ended up with so many yards. But field goal, as you mentioned, interception, those are huge. And if you expect to play with these teams like the Chiefs or Bills or whoever we might go up against in the AFC, in the Super Bowl. Yes, I'm talking about the Super Bowl. We got to get there, but you have to be able to execute and convert when it counts, and that is the red zone.
Yeah, the Niners offense this year to date is ranked 20th in the NFL out of the 32 teams. We average 20.7 points a game, and to me, it's very disappointing. With we have this brilliant coach that is an offensive genius, and we have a tremendous cast of players. I mean, it's like an all-star team, and we're only scoring 20 points a game. So there's something wrong there, and turnovers is part of it. But we've got to start opening this up. And I was pleased today when in the 49er practice, they had Jimmy Garoppolo throwing deep. And that's, our drives are just 5, 6, 7, 8 yards at a time. We move down the field and a lot of third down plays. And there's no very long passes. And, so today in practice, they had Garoppolo throwing deep.
Oh, that's great.
So we'll see. We'll see if that happens on Sunday.
Yep. Oh, but talking about that offensive spark, last week we also talked about potential trades. We mentioned Christian McCaffrey might be on the block. We reported that on Wednesday evening, and by Thursday evening, the news broke that we had gotten Christian McCaffrey. And talk about a spark. Let's talk about him for a little bit, because we saw a brief preview of what he could be to this offense. The times that he did touch the ball, albeit few, you could tell that guy was just, ready to come out of a cannon. I think there was one of the first places they got the ball to him was kind of on a wide receiver screen. They had him lined up out wide. It's a quick pass. Jimmy G is really good at those, shotgun snap, quick pass outside, the wide receivers block downfield a little bit, and boom, he just turned on the jet so fast. And I didn't recognize who he was, but he was so fast and broke a tackle and got, I think it was 12 yards. I was like, whoa, who is that guy? And that was Christian McCaffrey. So very, very excited to have him. Let's learn a little bit more about him, Grandpa. I know you have kind of a bio sheet. Tell us about Christian McCaffrey.
Well, this guy, his father played for us in 1994, Ed McCaffrey. He was a wide receiver, number 87, and he later went to Denver and won 2 Super Bowls in Denver, and that's where the family resides. That's where Christian was born, and he grew up in Colorado. In high school, he scored 141 touchdowns. 141 touchdowns.
That's unbelievable.
In high school, and then he went to Stanford, and his sophomore year at Stanford, he gained over 2,000 yards.
Mm-hmm.
He was drafted by the Carolina Panthers as the 8th pick in the 2017 draft, as I recall. And he's the 3rd player to ever have 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving in the same year, Roger Craig being one of the others. He's just a yardage machine, is my name for him. I mean, he's a first down maker. He touched the ball, I think it was 10 times on Sunday. He gained 63 yards and 3 first downs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're going to see, is just first downs. I am just in heaven that we got this guy. I didn't think we had a chance to get him. And I think I said that last week, that, he may be on the block, but we're not going to get him. And we did. So I really take my hat off to John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, and they've done it again. So we're loaded on offense. And McCaffrey is, maybe he's the spark that we need, to start a 10-game winning streak or whatever. But yeah, he's solid.
Very solid. Yeah. What were your thoughts when you saw the news?
Oh, I was ecstatic because
I think you called me. Yeah, you called me like right away.
I was super excited. He's a playmaker. I mean, we got Debo, who get the ball in his hands and he yards after catch. He just makes plays. He makes people miss tackles. And I love that. And even Jennings and Ayuk, and we have a lot of playmakers. I mean, Garoppolo just distributes the ball, and it's the yards after people touch that ball. And Christian McCaffrey is just another amazing weapon, known around the league. I mean, is like the #1 fantasy league player for, the years he's been in the league, because he finds the end zone, and he puts, he racks up the yards. So he's just a little spark plug. And I think it's just going to be another, just a huge threat to every defense with Debo and our other, playmakers and athletes. Christian McCaffrey is just an awesome fit, and he's just quick, fast, and he's got a nose for the ball, and he's a winner. So I'm glad he's on our team.
I know, I'm really excited. Some of my initial thoughts, and I can kind of talk my way through them, were awesome. A huge playmaker, but some of the storylines kind of surrounding him lately have been his health. He's been injured for really the last 2 years. This year, he's really looking back to kind of his first 2 years in the league. And it really was up until that 2020 year where everything got crazy because of COVID and the prep and everything. There were more injuries in 2020 than normal. And a lot of people attribute that to a shortened training camp and everything that kind of just, the world flipped on its head pretty much. But, Coach Shanahan was asked about that and said, we recognize that. We thought back in 2017 he had the highest kind of bill of health pretty much that they've ever seen coming out of college. So you can't predict these things. And if you take that injury history the last 2 years too much into if you think about that too much, then you're not going to make a single move ever, because this is football, and football injuries happen. But hopefully he's now, in a place where he's kind of recovered, his body's back together, he can stay healthy, which I sure hope he can. The second thing that I was like so stoked about was just the fact that he's not a rental. You know, when a lot of these kind of big trades go down in mid-season for these contenders like the Niners that want to kind of just, you know, deepen their roster or add a weapon going into the second half of the season. Sometimes it is a rental. Even last year when the Rams picked up Von Miller, it was a rental, and it paid off for them. They won the Super Bowl. But the best part about Christian McCaffrey, he's not a rental. This guy's going to be under contract through 2025. And the way that they got him, honestly, the Panthers did a lot of they bear a lot of the dirty money, if you will, of all the guaranteed money they had converted into signing bonus. So even this year, he's on like a vet minimum, and then the money get left on the contract for the other 3 years is not guaranteed. So at some point they will probably restructure, but he is under contract for the next 3 years. John Lynch and team has to figure out how everybody's going to get paid. But still, he's under contract. He's going to be a Niner, and going to be part of this offense going forward.
Right. Yeah. The trading deadline is November 1st. I don't think we're going to make any more moves. We might, but typically, Josh, just like you said, these star players that are playing in their last year of their contract are going to become a free agent, in 10 games.
Right.
So teams that know they're not going anywhere, they trade them to get something, because at the end of the season, they get nothing. So, each year there's a bunch of stars traded. The Bears traded Robert Quinn today to Philly.
Yep, big trade.
Yeah, and he's one of their best players. But he's going to be a free agent, and he's going to go somewhere else, and so they got something for him. So yeah, there's the next few days there'll be some activity, and it's always an interesting time of the year.
Yeah, I doubt we'll see any trades. If we do see any, I think it might just be some more interior defensive line depth, but that's really the only thing that I can see us wanting. But we still have a pretty good and deep line, so I honestly don't think we would even see that.
There's a cornerback in Washington who has asked to be traded. I think his name is Williams, and he wants out, so he will be traded. Now, where he's going to go, I have no idea, but there's a possibility we might get him.
True. Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah,
November 1st.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, well, let's talk some Rams. This game is going to be a big one. As you guys mentioned, it's down in LA. You guys are going to be there. It's a 1:25 p.m. kick. It's in Inglewood at SoFi, which is kind of an indoor-outdoor stadium. But anyways, it should be beautiful weather in Southern California. Right now, San Francisco, the Niners are favored by 1.5 points, with the over and under being 42.5. So they're predicting a little bit of a low scoring game. And I don't think they're necessarily wrong to believe that, but I will share my prediction at the end. So let's talk some Rams. Dad, what are some things that you are interested in, or storylines that you're following going into this Rams game?
I am thinking we have to contain Cooper Kupp. That's my number one thing. The Rams aren't going to run the ball a whole lot, very successful, especially against our defense. So they're going to have to go to the air. We'll put a lot of pressure on them, on Stafford, of course. But it's, when any team plays the Rams, it's about containing Cooper Kupp, trying to keep him in front of you, not letting him get behind you, and just keep him, minimize his yards after catch, I guess. Just keep the ball in front of us, and contain Cooper Kupp. So that's kind of what we'll be looking at, and also to see how we utilize Christian McCaffrey and just see what our offense looks like. Hopefully Debo's healthy, that he will play. You know, he's nursing his hamstring. So, but to be full strength offensively with our our playmakers would be awesome. So, and to get some rhythm, it's so hard to, really haven't seen the Niners really develop offensive rhythm, and then in this last game kind of stall in the red zone, I guess. So just to be consistent offensively, to move the ball, and I'm excited about that. I think we have great potential to win this game. We match up really well against the Rams and have a great history playing them. So Cooper Kupp, and then just being able to move the ball offensively. I'm excited to be there and watch it all go down.
Grandpa, what are some of your thoughts kind of headed into the game?
Well, the Rams are a rival. They have been since, we joined the NFL in 1950. This is the 148th meeting between the two teams. And for many years, the Rams just killed us. They were 20 games ahead of us in the season series. And then in the 80s, this started to turn around. And today, we lead the series 76, 68, and 3 ties. We've won the last 7 regular season games. And we have played well against them. I just was looking at their offensive line, and boy, is it different from the Super Bowl just a few months ago. So, Andrew Whitworth retired, and then they had 2 other guys that, one went to the Panthers, Edwards, and 2 other of their offensive linemen are on IR. So they're playing a 3rd string center right now, although Brian Allen may come back this Sunday. That's a game day decision, but their line is just a shell of what it was a year ago. That's why they can't run the ball. They average 70 yards a game. That's 31st in the league. And Matthew Stafford has been sacked 22 times.
Yep.
So, the offensive line, that's why they can't run, and it's why Stafford's gotten sacked. So I don't worry about Bosa at all. He's, there's teams that may play right at him. They used to do that against Lawrence Taylor and others. Just the way to beat them is go right at him. But Bosa he's a Hall of Famer. He's going to be just phenomenal. So I look for our pass rush to really put pressure on Stafford, because they have to pass. They can't run. Cooper Kupp is phenomenal. You cannot guard him. You can't guard him. They're going to throw to him, and he's open, and he has great hands, and that. So yeah, he's their weapon. And so yeah, it's a great rivalry. That rivalries really thrive when both teams are good. They don't thrive when both teams are lousy. But I remember growing up as a kid, and the LA Rams used to beat us all the time with their fearsome foursome and Roman Gabriel and Jack Snow and all those guys. So it's nice to finally be beating them. And Sunday we're a 1.5 favorite. When I look at it, I think we should be more, but as long as we win, I'll be happy.
Right. Just real quick for a plug for our last time we played the Rams back on October 3rd. At the end of our podcast, both Dad and Grandpa shared some really cool stories about Jack Snow and other kind of Rams tidbits in history. As our family has spent a lot of time here in Southern California. So just wanted to put a plug in for that if you want to hear some cool stories about Jack Snow and others. Going back to kind of Rams prep, something that really stood out to me that you both already mentioned, but just kind of want to drive them home is that, their rushing game stinks. I mean, it's terrible, which puts a lot of pressure on Matthew Stafford, apparently likes being called Matthew. And he has been having a hard season, as you mentioned, sacked 22 times. And I believe he has 9 interceptions, which is second most in the league behind Matt Ryan, who just got benched, who has 10. So he's not playing well. I mean, they are averaging 17.3 points a game, which is 24th in the league. We average just 3 points more, which isn't that much more, but like we've talked about, I think we're trending in the right direction. Honestly, I don't think they are trending in any direction. I think they kind of are what they are for now. But it'll be interesting to see what Sean McVay draws up. As much as we talk about Kyle Shanahan being an offensive genius, Sean McVay also gets touted as another kind of brainchild of these new innovative offenses. So it'll be interesting to see kind of if they do anything different, what do they do and how do they utilize Cooper Kupp maybe in different ways and such to kind of and try to enforce their will once again. But I do think, the Niners have a way of finding themselves against the Rams, and I mean finding out who they are and getting their confidence back. We saw that just 4 weeks ago. I hope this is another one of those games. There's been other games in past seasons of this, and I do think that there's a good chance, and I would agree with you, Grandpa, that we win this game. I think a 1.5 favorite. I would definitely take the Niners on that. And I would also definitely take the over. 42.5. That's I think a little bit low considering that the Rams defense isn't exceptional. It's probably still a top 10 defense, but against our offense, I think we will score more than usual, than they usually allow.
If we if we can hold them under 20 points, I think we'll win the game, but that our defense has to hold them under 20. I think that's just kind of how it's going to be. I think it's going to be like, it's kind of interesting how Vegas predicts the over under, how close that's going to be. They're going to be right in the ballpark. We need to score, over 20 and hold them to under 20. And it's probably going to be a 3 or 4 point spread. I mean, that's kind of the kind of game I see. I think that it's going to be just because our offense, I don't have a lot of faith yet in consistency. I think we'll hit some big plays. We just got to, be able to move the ball consistently up and down the field, control the ball. And I think we'll hold the Rams. We'll keep them. I mean, I'm thinking 17 points or under, but we just gotta move the ball and hold them back. I mean, it's just, X's and O's and, common sense.
And I think that's a really good point. And we mentioned this almost every single week, as does every commentator, honestly, but turnovers are going to be huge, especially in these close games, low scoring games. Those turnovers are huge. Even if that turnover just turns into 3 points, obviously you want it to turn into 7. Low points matter in a low scoring match. So it'll be interesting. I'm very fascinated to see this one shake out. Before we get to game predictions, just some injury updates. We've mentioned that we're recording this on Wednesday evening. Deebo Samuel is nursing a hamstring injury, did not practice today. Other folks that did not practice were Armstead, of course, he's out. Ebukam with an Achilles kind of tendonitis. Dre Greenlaw is nursing his calf. He did miss some time in the game against the Chiefs with that calf. Juwan Jennings with a hamstring. Kyle Juszczyk had surgery on his finger on Monday, will be out this game, hopes to be back after the bye. And then Trev Williams had to kind of a resting day since he's a boss and he can do that. What is great to see is that Nick Bosa and Charvarius Ward, with their groin injuries, that very key players on our defense, are not listed anywhere in the injury report. So that's great. That's great news.
Did you mention Greenlaw? Is he questionable?
He did not practice today. I don't know what his game status is. I mean, it's still a little early. It's Wednesday. I don't think he's ruled out. If anything, he's questionable or day to day.
Cool. Okay. Because he's our number one. He's our leads the team in tackles right now. So he's key. And Armstead, I mean, there was a stat I think I saw that with Armstead in, we're number 8 against the run with our defense, and with him out of the game, we're number 24 in the league. Without Armstead in. So. Not that we have to worry too much about the run with the Rams, but Armstead and Greenlaw, I don't like missing any game with either one of those guys missing, actually. So,
right. Yeah. And the last piece of good news on the injury front is that we mentioned it last week, Jason Verrett coming off the physically unable to perform list. Did officially get activated. So he is on the roster, whether he plays or not. This week we'll see, but he is now eligible to play this season. Remember that they had to activate him by today, otherwise he was out for the year. So that's good that we saw that. Once again, we'll see if he plays this week or if they give him, just be more cautious and careful, give him the bye and be back for the kind of second half of the season. Grandpa, any other things that I missed on the injury updates?
No, that's all the injuries that I'm aware of. They're concerning. We need everybody. Yeah. So. Yeah.
I mean, I do think, and I mentioned this right before we started recording, that Debo, obviously you want Debo. We need Debo on the offense. Nursing a hamstrings kind of need time. You can do some things to kind of strengthen that hamstring, but most hamstring injuries really just need time. So not surprised to see that he did not practice today. It'll be interesting to watch his practice participation Thursday and Friday. But would love, we, as much as we talk about Debo being that wide back, the kind of running a wide receiver turned running back, Christian McCaffrey is the opposite. He's a receiver back, or a wide, what's the opposite, I guess? Running
receiver.
Thank you. So to have them both on like fully functioning, fully participating in the offense, being able to make those that pre-snap motion that Kyle Shanahan loves and get defenses kind of stuck in their packages they have on the field is going to be so fun to see. So I really hope that Debo can be healthy for this game.
And Debo is a Ram killer. He, for whatever reason, plays really well against the Rams. The Rams also are coming off a bye week, so they're rested. They're getting some injured people back, and they've had 2 weeks to game plan against us. So that's a factor. Our bye will come after this game, and while we're disappointed in our record, I did want to point out that the first half of this season, we've played 5 road games and had 3 home games. So we've, a lot of this has been on the road, and that'll come back on the second half of the season when we have mostly home games. So that's a positive.
That is a positive, including that game in Mexico City where it's technically an away game, but we should have, I would think, Niners home crowd, home away from home.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so let's talk some score predictions. Dad, what did you have?
Let's see. I think I said, what was it? 20. Let's see. What do we got here?
23-17.
Yeah, 23-17 Niners. So a 6-point spread there, holding the Rams to 17 points. If we hold the Rams to 17 points, we win the game regardless, and I'm hoping we get 23 or more points from the Niners.
Grandpa, what do you think?
My prediction is the Niners will win by 3, and my score would be 27-24. So they're always tight games. I'd rather have a laugher and win by 30, but that doesn't happen. So 27-24 is my score.
Very good. I'm closer to you, Grandpa, and I teased this a little bit. I think that this will be a little bit, and I'm making my assumption based on that Debo will play, but I do think that this will be a little bit of a breakout game, that we can really see Christian McCaffrey go, full strength in as the primary running back and utilize him in ways that we haven't seen yet, that the Rams haven't seen yet. And my score is a 31-24 Niners. And the reason why that I have also the Rams getting above 20, although I hope that they don't, is just that I do feel like that we put some things on tape against the Chiefs that Sean McVay will also try to expose. I'm nervous about that. But I think that we have enough to overcome that.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, as per usual, we always end 49ers family with a story from Grandpa Mike, as he's kind of been around the team and been a fan since 1949. So, Grandpa, what story do you have for us tonight?
Well, tonight I thought I'd share with everyone this wonderful thing that happened to me along the way. Everybody that knows me knows that I'm a huge 49er fan. They did where I worked at United Airlines, and all my friends and neighbors, I mean, I'm always wearing 49er paraphernalia. So a number of years ago, a gal I worked with, her husband is a doctor. And it turns out that Joe Montana's wife's grandfather was ill, and he just didn't have any energy, and they thought he was probably going to die. And so they took him to a couple of doctors, and without success, and they finally took him to this gal I worked with, husband, and he recommended some medication, and the grandfather went home and took the meds and made this miraculous recovery. He was his old self. He had all the energy in the world, and the family was very thankful. So they, on the next visit, they said, we want to thank you. You saved my father's life, or my grandfather. And so they said, how would you like to meet Joe Montana? And the doctor said, who's Joe Montana? And so he went home that night and he told his wife, who I work with, and she goes, oh, I got to tell Mike Casey about this. And so she came to work the next day and told me the story. And she said, would you mind talking to my husband and telling him a little bit about Joe's background, because we're going to go meet him. So anyway, to kind of fast forward on this story, it was about 6 months later that they did go up to Rancho Palos Verdes and meet Joe Montana during the off season. And so they sat around for about an hour and they talked, and they had young children in common, and they both liked horses. And Patty, along in that hour, told him, Joe Montana, about me. She said, I work with a guy who is just your greatest fan, and he flies up to half the games. He lives in Southern California, but he flies up to San Francisco, and he's just, a phenomenal fan. So that was one of the things she said. And then the conversation kind of became an hour. They had nothing to talk about. We've all kind of been there. And so Patty and her husband were going to leave. They said, okay, well, we should get going. And Joe says to Patty, now, what was your friend's name? And Patty goes, what friend? Because they talked about a lot of things. The guy that comes up to the games. And, oh, that's Mike Casey. And so Joe says, just hold on a second, don't leave. So he goes down the hall, he comes back with an autographed football. So, it's to Mike, a faithful 49er, Joe Montana. So I have that right behind me here. And then there's a little more to this story. It kind of, it has another piece to it. So it's years later, and Ronnie Lott became a Plan B free agent, and he was signed by the Raiders. So he's going to come and play in LA after his illustrious career as a 49er. And he sent his agent to look at property. He looked at, I'm told, 100 places in Southern California for Ronnie to live. And Ronnie wanted him to narrow it down to 4 or 5, and then he would go look at those places. So one of my clients lived at the beach in Playa del Rey. He had a 3-story house that he was renting, and it had a fireplace on each level. I mean, a view of the ocean. It was, spectacular. And his landlord kept raising the rent. And this guy could afford it. It was really not a problem, but he didn't like the landlord raising the rent every year. So he said, I'm out of here. So the place became for rent. And I got a call at home from my client, who was a practical joker. And so at first I didn't believe him, but he said, Mike, if you want to meet Ronnie Lott, come on over Sunday. He's going to be here at 3:00 to look at my place. So I didn't call him back right away. And the next day he called me again and he said, do you want to meet Ronnie Lott or not? And I said, are you kidding? And he said, no, he's going to come and look at my place. And so I said, yeah, I would love to meet him. So he said, well, be here about 2:30 because he's coming at 3:00 on Sunday. So I was there. I had my 49er shirt on, and I brought the Joe Montana signed ball and a magazine that Ronnie Lott was on the cover. And so while he came in, and Ronnie Lott was just marvelous. He was a wonderful, wonderful guy. He couldn't have been more friendly. So he walked into the living room where I was, and he saw my 49er shirt, and he said, oh no, because he's now with the Raiders. And I just said, Ronnie, thank you for 10 years of wonderful thrills and 4 championships. And he said, oh, thank you. And so anyway, they look at that, they go upstairs and they come back down, and I was hesitant, but I did it. I asked him, I said, Ronnie, would you be kind enough to sign this ball? And so he said, sure, I'd be glad to. And so he holds the ball and he says, oh, I see Joe's been here. I said, yeah, Joe's been here. So anyway, he's also signed this football, and it's one of my pride and joys. So that's my story for tonight.
That's so awesome. I love that story. I haven't heard that one in honestly a very, very long time. So super, super cool. I know Grandpa has a full room dedicated to San Francisco sports with all kinds of stories behind every single item. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Okay, well, that'll do it for another episode of 49ers Family. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We love feedback, love questions, and incorporate them into our talk track here. Once again, please email us at 49ersfamilypodcast@gmail.com. That's 49ers 49ERS familypodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, thank you for being part of our 49ers family. Go Niners.
Go Niners. Beat the Rams.